can just
contact
not
in my
have your
younger
video
days,
on.
so I'm not, unless I
You
hit
can
something,
pretend
like
like me.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
fell or something.
I wasn't bright enough to avoid
Okay.
those.
All right, we are live on
Where you
Facebook,
just look at something.
YouTube,
Some of them were fun.
apparently.
Yeah,
I'll be waiting for
just
that
not put on
chapter in the
video.
book.
Yeah, right.
Who,
I told you our theme song
Who
was
is
somebody's
our-
gonna hurt
Yes,
somebody.
you
Stacy.
said that to me, which
Stacy
you
and
said
Sue?
that to me while
The
I was
other
on the
two
road, actually.
alternates, right?
I played
Yeah,
and
because
listened to it. I
Greg,
said,
Greg
"God,
got,
Right.
I didn't know that song was out back then.
Oh, yeah.
so. We have 1, 2, 3, 4,
Larry Pond, and I used to play it on the speaker in the
course.
cruiser.
Of course.
7, 8, 9,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
You
11.
guys are live on YouTube, you know,
2.
just saying.
And of course, the city council
Right.
is going.
There's 11.
So we have 9 regular
I
members.
noticed
So
Four. I think.
4.
Peter, we have 9 regular members at the moment,
Yeah.
assuming Sarah stays on.
Downstairs.
All right, then. Are we ready to go?
We are.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Laconia Planning Board. Today, Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Call the meeting to order in a moment, but first, some instructions here for the public to be able to participate in this hearing. Due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, in accordance with the governor's emergency orders and executive orders, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there's no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting. This was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access available by video and other electronic means. For tonight's meeting, we are utilizing the Zoom platform. All members of the board will have the ability to communicate, and the public may watch the meeting live on YouTube at the city's YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com, Laconia NH, all one word, / between com and Laconia. You can listen to this meeting if you don't wish to see our handsome faces by dialing the following phone number, 312-626-6799. And you can participate in public hearings using the Zoom app. The webinar ID for tonight's meeting is 844-4600-6916. Again, that's 844-4600-6916. The public notice was already previously given, as we normally do, and the instructions for connection were in those notices, which are posted around at various points in the city and also available at the city's excellent website, laconianh.gov. If anyone has a problem accessing this meeting, please call 524-3877, extension 249. That's 524-3877, extension 249, or send an email to planning@laconianh.gov. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will have to adjourn the meeting and reschedule it to another date and time. Please note, in accordance with the right to know law, all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. I will now call the meeting to order. A roll call attendance when each member states their presence will then take place. And when your name is called, please state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, and which is another requirement on the right to know law. May we have a call of the roll, please, Ms. Graham?
Bruce Cheney,
President in the chambers.
Charlie St. Clair,
Here.
Mike Delavecchia,
I'm here.
Kirk Biotti,
I'm remote and alone.
Sarah Jenna,
Remote and alone.
Rich McNeil,
Remote and alone.
Brett Beliveau,
Remote and alone.
Edwin Bonas,
Remote and alone.
Stacy Susie,
Remote and alone.
and Peter Burnett.
Remote and alone. All right, sounds like we have a quorum and all that. Hang on a second here. Switch to this other one. Also present are the staff, Rob Moore, Kalina Graham, and Dean Trefethan, the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the city of Laconia. Does anyone have any objection to the acceptance of the minutes from April 6th in the form that was sent to you? Sensing none, I'll declare the minutes from the April 6th meeting adopted as official minutes. We don't have any extensions. We do have a continued public hearing. This is PL 2013-0100 SP amended to, that's right, that's a 2013 approval and an amendment pending for that. At 264 Lakeside Avenue, it's called the Tower Hill Tavern. There's a request to amend the original approval to allow for indoor live music and DJs until close at 1 a.m. Is the applicant ready to go forward? Okay. let me pull this thing up.
Yep, excuse me, the applicant is not on at the moment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, how should we proceed in the absence of the applicant?
Um,
Push it.
We could just push it try to go on to the next one. We do have someone else on the line for us that I don't want to hold up too long if for whatever reason the applicant is
Well,
not going to be here.
it's 6:40 approximately. We'll give the applicant until 7 before we decide what we're going to do with it. How's that?
Okay, fair enough.
Yep, and so we'll skip ahead to the Historic Overlay District expansion. Who's here to speak on that for us tonight?
I'll carry the ball on that. So you had the presentation at the last meeting by the members of the Historic District Commission. Just briefly, their desire is to expand the district to include what has traditionally been viewed as the downtown area and some adjoining areas that hold significant historical value, such as the buildings along Water Street and some of the buildings going up North Main Street. As you know, the present district is very small. It's 5 lots. And this encompasses much more of the historical, but not all of, but much more of the historical area of Laconia. So you had the presentation and you voted to go to a public hearing tonight, which is where we are right now.
All right, very good. Well, then I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:40 p.m. Are there any members of the public or abutters that would like to be heard? Attorney Wood, I think you wished to speak on this.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Although I'm not here in an official capacity, the one thing that I would say about this district, and while generally speaking, I have no issues with it, I would caution against the inclusion of the Holy Trinity School in this district, as the city does currently own it, and that may impede development of the property. And I'm assuming the city doesn't want to continue owning it. So it may be better to end the historic district prior to Holy Trinity School.
That would be an ironic result, wouldn't it?
How do you?
It would, the controversy over the diocese intending to sell St. Joe's is what got people talking about the boundaries of this district, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true, although it's been subdivided now, Mr. Chair, and so I think there is the ability to say it's a different parcel. And
I
maybe-
understand that. I just am appreciating the irony. We so seldom have that opportunity in these proceedings.
That is a true statement.
So any other, I'm sorry, were you done, Attorney Wood?
I am finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public, either there or in the electronic waiting room?
Get somebody here, stand up.
Sorry. Hi, good evening. Tara Shore, District Chair of the Historic District. I don't fully agree with Mr. Wood's case. I think we've proven quite a number of times, and we've brought evidence of the fact that buildings inside a historic district do not necessarily mean they won't get sold or they lose value to people interested in purchasing them or anything of that nature. And I certainly could, we'll get all the information we've already shared with you numerous times about that, if you'd like me to. But I think that we've gone through it a number of times and that we don't have to go through that again. If you look at all the information that we've given you in the past and shared with you from other districts throughout the state and the country, being inside of a historic district does not bar people or stop people from being interested in purchasing a property.
So can I ask you a question? Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
You may.
Thank you. So weird. I'm sorry, I looked at you for some reason.
I'm
I just
sitting-
want to be
sitting right
clear.
next to
If that was in the historical overlay and somebody came in and bought it, and let's just say they don't want to tear it down because that's the main reason of the overlay
Sure.
district. But they wanted to maybe build on it, maybe remodel some of it, maybe take down part of it, but not, the majority of it or something like that. How would this, if they were in the district, how would it affect that? Would that be a real problem for them or what?
It would not be a real problem. What the historic districts facades are very important. Those are most important. So if the facade,
The
so the
face?
front of the building
Okay,
would be very important. The facade generally adds to or is part of the character of the district. And I think we can agree along that particular space. It certainly, I know there is, tension in regards to whether or not the school has character, but it certainly does. And it adds to and is part of the character of that space, that area. So the facade would be something we would take into consideration carefully. But for instance, if they wanted to take down the gym, well, that's an additional space. It was added after the fact of the original building. Taking down that piece probably would not be an issue.
well,
Adding a third floor or adding something huge on the back of it, maybe if they were to do that and continue with the stonework or to continue with that type of building materials, that would certainly be considered. Our job is really to work with somebody coming in and owning a building inside of a district, not to work against them. We want them to come. We want them to reuse the structure that's already in place, and we want to help them find ways to do that.
so the buzzword you said that caught my attention was probably wouldn't be a problem. And I think there are some people, certainly I would never speak for anybody on the council, but there are some people within the city who may worry about that word probably.
Sure, but nobody, I can't tell you that we're going to walk out of here tonight and it's not going to snow on us. It probably won't, but I can't tell you it's not going to. I can't tell you that.
But the goal of the overlay district is to not tell people what to do inside. It's more, like you said, the facade, the front of the building,
Right,
and the outside of the building is the most important.
absolutely.
Okay.
And as you can see, the Hagens are right in the district. They're in the most historic house in the city, really. And they're doing a lot of work inside, and they're publicly showing us that. And what they're doing, I can commend them for personally. We're not having any issues with what's, they're not, that's the inside of that building. The facade will be something, if they choose to do something out there, that would be something they would come to us about. We would have a discussion. It would be, our job is to work with people, not to work against them. So we're happy to work with somebody who's coming in and looking at one of the buildings inside the district. We want them to come and we want to help them. We have lots of ways of being able to help them, both financially and with ideas or thoughts or however.
All right, any other questions? Any other members of the public that wish to be heard? All right, sensing none, then we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Can I ask Attorney Wood something, if he would be so kind?
well, yes, but I can adjourn the public hearing to do that. I mean, you could still ask him the question.
Okay,
It would be my pleasure.
I'm sure. So after hearing Tara's explanation, what are your comments?
Well, again, generally speaking, I don't have an issue with it. The issue that exists with this specific building is that it's currently city-owned, and the city doesn't want to keep it, I'm assuming. I mean, I haven't been
Well,
privy to any conversations at the city council
I
level
think they've
regarding
been
it.
upfront about that. They don't want it.
The issue that exists, and while again, it's not insurmountable, it's just added cost. And there's already going to be a cost to develop that into something useful.
I guess I don't understand why it's added cost. Because
Well-
we don't know what may or may not be proposed or may or not be.
No, it's
contested
true
by
that we
anybody.
don't know that, but we can assume that it's going to be something that's going to make use of that space in either a commercial or residential fashion.
Mhm.
And so the concerns that I have with regard to that are specifically related to the facade on the rear side where the gym would be. And if you're going to require that it be brick instead of something that matches it but is not brick, that's going to be a significant cost should someone choose to.
In the back.
That's correct.
I'm pretty sure I heard her say they were more, I think she actually mentioned the gym and was more, and said that hadn't been put in there originally and was more concerned about the front of the building.
Right. And I'm fine with the front. I don't have an issue with the front. It's the concern about how the backside would be dealt with and whether there's going to be an additional cost in meeting certain requirements that would be incumbent upon buildings in the historic district. And that's really the concern that I'm expressing, not on behalf of any client, but on myself. And I note, I like Tara a lot. I work with her on a number of boards, or on a board. And so it's not a personal thing as far as this goes. It's simply this building maybe shouldn't be included in this district at this time.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Certainly, Bruce.
Excuse me. Along the lines of additional costs, if the city is moving towards selling the property and then we suddenly put it in the historic district, doesn't that bring it back to where we're going to potentially have additional costs for issues like changing facades or whatever? And could delay or put off a potential buyer.
I think that's an accurate statement, Counselor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. I just noticed something. That property is not in the proposed district, is it?
It's in the proposed, it's not in the current.
Am I looking at the right building? Proposed is the grayish blue, right?
That's
And there's,
correct.
And the tan is the existing, which is just the railroad station, the library, and it looks like the church and the rectory,
That's
or
correct.
the rectory and the outbuilding. That's what it is, isn't it? No. Church and the rectory.
Could you circle it again, Rob? Mr. Chair, Rob has the cursor on the school building.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at the plant. All right, I'm not looking at you. Yeah, I'm talking about the area that that is shaded tan. Isn't that part of the existing? Isn't that in fact the existing?
Yes.
Well, then all I'm saying is the color scheme is wrong. Oh, maybe it isn't. What is the one right at the corner? Is that just the school? The corner of Messer and Church?
Correct.
All right. So there's 3 parcels on that site now.
That's correct.
Rectory, church, and school. And this school has the attached gym. Okay. So that all we did really there was add the school to the district, and then the federal building across the railroad tracks.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. That's the proposal.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, well, 6:53, the public hearing is ended. And I'm gonna get back to my agenda here. So how about we call, see, Mr. Sandegate is here for his application.
6 minutes up, and I just got a text from him. He's very close. He's on the way.
He's on his way.
You want to do the vote on this, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I guess we'll do that.
Your recommend.
Anthony's online now, or if you want to do that.
Are you talking about?
Well,
the-
let's do the motion. We gotta have a motion to accept the expansion of the district and recommend it to the council for a vote, right?
Peter, Ed Bonas, comments.
Hello, Ed.
How you doing today?
Good.
First of all, I never hid the fact that I wasn't in favor of this historic district in the beginning anyway. But I think to think that even consider excluding properties just comes across as unfair. So I don't disagree with Mr. Woods on, it's probably not going to help the sale of this property. But I would have an issue if we were going to exclude it for the benefit of just the city versus the general public. We're not, can anybody just come in and get their property excluded? So I think we need to take that into account before we vote on this. That was it.
Any other comments from board members?
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Cheney.
I think I speak for the council. It's a bit of a difficult position, but there are things in the works that, including this building in the historic district, would create some difficulties. I would tell you the council would prefer that, and if you look at the original district, it was left out at that time, and we would ask you to consider leaving it out at this time because it may well impact negatively negotiations and things that are going on at this time.
Well, here's a suggestion. We adopt it and we recommend it to the council. If the council wants to just sit on it for a while, they can. If the council wants to modify it, they can. But from where we're sitting right now, we're probably in a position to vote to accept it. And then the council can do with whatever they wish with it, right?
That's true.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
If the council, if the planning board refers this, votes to recommend this to the city council tonight, in whatever shape and form it is, then the expanded district will be in effect. Just like we have any zoning changes that once the planning board has done the public hearing and recommended its passage, that those zoning changes are in effect for new applications. So if you recommend to the city council tonight without any changes to the district, that entire district would be in effect.
But am I correct in believing that this board does not have the power to enact or amend an existing ordinance of the city, right?
That is correct, but I'm just saying that the way and I talked with our legal counsel this morning about that, to make sure. And just like on zoning ordinance changes, the planning board is not actually making the ordinance change, but once they recommend the ordinance change, it is in effect for new applications. The historic overlay district is part of our zoning ordinance, so therefore the same thing would apply. Now, your comment about the city council can just sit on it is true, but it would be technically in effect until they either approve it, and then of course it continues to be in effect, or if they were to reject the recommendation, then it would not be in effect. It's tricky, I understand.
And I might suggest that
Unmute yourself.
If it comes to the council and it's rejected, then we have to start over, so to speak, as opposed to the planning board tonight proposing everything but the school. And I, like a previous speaker, I can't guarantee, but I can substantially suggest to you that it would pass fairly easily. But with the school included, I suspect that there would be some problems develop. And I just think if we pass this without the school, it'll be fairly clear sailing. If we pass it with the school, not only is it going to delay the whole project, but some things that are already in the works would be affected negatively. Perhaps we could propose all but the school and table the school to a later date to give the council time to see what is happening. And if at a later date it appears that it doesn't interfere, then we could come back and add that at that time.
Mr.
Well,
Chair. Go ahead.
with all due respect, I'd like to be heard here. With all due respect, I don't think that's wise, because the purpose of having an overlay district is to treat like properties alike. And you can't carve out just one because of a possible economic benefit for the city or anyone else. You're defeating the very purpose of the historic overlay. You know, hey, we want to sell this building. Will you take us out of the overlay? Sure, no problem. I would urge I would urge the board to vote it up or down and let it land gently on the laps of the city council. Because it really is, from a planning standpoint, it's either yay or nay. We don't even,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
we don't even have any information on which, other than mere speculation, why we would carve any parcel out tonight. What we have is, we've gotten the presentation before, the full presentation at the previous meeting. Tonight, we do this, we do our job, and then we let the city council do theirs. We're not a political body, they are. So, who wanted to be
I
heard?
would remind you,
Charlie?
Mr. Chairman, that there's still a demolition permit in effect for the church.
Again, that's not within the jurisdiction of the planning board.
I understand, but my point is, here's something you want to put in the historic district, and yet they still can make a decision to tear the building down.
They can anyway. The Historic Commission cannot prevent a demolition, I don't believe. They can't prevent the renovation of the building or any of it.
Well,
Their job is advisory.
I'm not sure I agree with that assessment, but I just, it's not like this will be the only thing that's been carved out. The potential for the church to be carved out is not beyond the realm of possibility. I just asked that you give the council some time, pass the historic overlay minus the school, and give us some time.
Once we pass it, you can take all the time you want.
Peter Ed Bonaz, one of the historic district speakers said, one of the things she said was that the historic districts do not have an adverse effect on, on the area in a negative way. And we're already seeing on this alone, just one property, the effects that it's happening and how it can have financial effects. And so we're expanding this area. And when I hear, and I think originally when this first came up, part of me being against it was, the property owners have rights and we in effect are taking them away from them. And so now we're setting a new set of rules on these folks and saying, don't worry, it's not going to affect you. And we have a property in the works right now that's going to be affected. So
We don't know that. That's speculation.
well, then
That's
speculate, and we should, pass this and they can speculate on selling that lot.
Well,
That's the concern we're talking about right now.
there's always been this concern, no matter where it is in the country. People always say, well, if you do this and you do that, planning boards cost money. So, but if, Mr. Chair, if I could continue,
May.
thank you. I've not heard from anybody on the council, pro or con this. We've heard some concerns with our liaison from the council, Mark Hayes, who's said how he thought different councilors would approach this overlay. And we've heard from Councilor Cheney tonight, who has just told us that this would be clear sailing, which is important to hear because this is a big step for the city. We're not talking about the school, we're talking about many buildings, including the Colonial Theater, which I might remind everybody, the city has invested over $10 million now. And at some point, I believe it's the city's thoughts not to own the theater and not to be in control of it. So we're talking about the future here, not just one building, but a lot of buildings. And even Attorney Wood said he gets it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney, Counselor, but other than this one building, which apparently there must be some discussion going on about it. But I think that, and I don't know if she can still say something or not, but the chair of the Historical Overlay District group can also correct me if I'm wrong, but it makes sense to me. And I understand, Ed, you're concerned about carving out buildings. I get that. And I kind of agree with you on that, but I'm sure at some point, somebody else is going to come up and ask for the same thing, potentially. But if this building the school building has the possibility of either holding up or having this whole thing tabled or defeated at the council, I think that the most prudent thing to do is for us to do it right now, here, just table that, and the council and Tara and other people can work. If somebody is buying that property, they can meet with them and say, look, these are our concerns. And my guess is they'll probably work with them. I would think, because I can't imagine that, well, there are a few people that would tell the city where to stick it, but hopefully that this person is not one of them, or this group. But that's my thought on it, Peter. Peter, I get it, but I just don't want to see all the work that's been done potentially be either lost and we have to start over again or something, if the council feels that this is an issue, because they do want to unload that property. You know, there were a lot of people in the city that were ticked off about that when the council bought all that property. As a matter of fact, I think there was a bill introduced in Concord as a result of that being done, to make sure something like that's not done again, I guess. But if it's possible, Mr. Chair, I would like to hear the comments of the chair of the historical overlay with what we just talked about right now.
Are you asking Tara to come to the podium? Is that what you're doing?
If it's okay, yeah.
Well, go ahead, Charlie, but the public hearing is over.
Well, this
Charlie,
isn't a public hearing. This is a direct question.
Well, ask her the question then, please.
Well, I'm asking if what Councilor Cheney has proposed, if that's something that, you know, we could live with for the time being.
I think, I mean, I guess as the chair, I kind of speak for the commission, but I don't like to. I do have another commissioner here, but it would be certainly something we would consider. Sure. I mean, we would not want to, you know, jeopardize the entirety for the one. I'm sure there's some quote about something like that. But I would say, and I would keep it pretty clear that historic districts, so I guess I would bend your ear or get you to kind of listen to the idea that items are put inside historic districts for reasons. And although it may not be the prettiest building in the city and it may not have the deepest history in the city, it has a strong, strong connection to the Irish heritage of our city. And it connects completely with the church. And I understand that the church is not legally, in a sense, inside the district at this moment in time. And there's obviously something happening because this is the second time the school has been asked to be pulled out in the last 2 years since we started this. So something is going on that seems rather important, but I would ask that those making decisions tonight consider the fact that historic districts are put in place to continue the character and the heritage of the space and of the city we live in. And our Irish heritage is intensely strong, and that space, those two buildings, really represent the Irish Catholic population here and their time at the mills in this city, and their growth through the years here in the city. So for me personally, speaking outside of being the chair and someone who lives and breathes the history of this city every day, I would personally want it to stay, but I understand that there's some concern there for that. And I would certainly speak with our commission about, you know, moving forward with something outside of it. I do have the same concern. I don't remember which commissioner here stated carving out the one piece. That is a little bit of a concern there. So that's
Well,
that.
if I can just say, and I'll let,
Charlie, that was your question.
yeah, and I
Is
want to
there-
just, if I can continue, I know I'm done with the questions, but I just want to point out that, and Councilor Cheney can back this up, the city held in their hands the right to sell that property to whoever they wanted to, but they had to meet certain criteria with what was going to be done with it. Am I right with that, Bruce?
That's correct.
So I'm thinking that the city will protect that building. In other words, I don't think they're going to sell it to somebody, and I've been wrong before, but I'm willing to take this one, that the city will not let that be torn down for anything, really. I think they're going to work with it.
I think that we're here to discuss the overlay district, not specific buildings within it.
Okay.
Okay, that's what's before us tonight. That's what was noticed. We've had 2 public hearings. It's time for the board to decide what it wants to do. I've stated my opinion. You know what my opinion is.
Time for a motion?
Sure.
I would make a motion that we approve the historical overlay as is proposed minus the school building, and we would table that till the next meeting.
You
Second,
mean church building?
The school building. The
Except
building,
for-
Trinity School building that we're talking about. So my motion is to approve the whole district except for that building, which we would table till the next meeting, which is the beginning of June, because that would give us time. I don't think anything's going to happen to that building in the next 30 days. And that would give us time to include.
Wait. What's your motion?
My motion
To-
is to approve this, okay, I'm getting it, okay.
Keep going.
To approve the historical district, the overlay as is proposed, minus the Trinity School, which we would put aside and table that till the next meeting, that one parcel.
We can't do that.
Oh, I don't know, I made the proposal, you tell me.
We have an application before us. We have to do it.
Well, I don't know, is that,
We can do our job tonight. What we've been speculating about is the city council's job. So there's been a motion made and a second. Does anyone wish to speak on this motion?
Ed Bonez again, I caution this board to be voting on. And what I heard was, I agree with the historic district except for this piece. So, we keep adding exceptions and you just come across as that you're doing favors for somebody. That's what this board looks like. So if that board approves what Charlie's proposing, it appears to me that we are a board that's just going to approve some side deal for somebody. That's all it says to me. So I would urge this board to reject that proposal.
If I can just ask someone, Mr. Chair, I believe what you are saying is we have to vote on this proposal the way it's put in front of us. We cannot make an exception to it. We have to vote on the proposal the way it is. And if we deny it, then the applicant has to come back before us with an altered plan, and then we vote on that plan. Is that correct?
I don't think that's what I'm saying, Brett. If we wanted to carve out that piece, we could do it. Because we're the ones that are establishing the boundaries of the overlay district and recommending it to the city council. And with all due respect to Dean, I don't think it has legal effect unless it's approved by the council. Because it requires a legislative act, that's all. What I'm saying is, and the motion that's pending is to approve the overlay district except for that one parcel that the school's located on. I don't know, Charlie, what was the part about taking it up again at the planning board, just carving out that one property as if to decide the issue? I mean, we're deciding the issue tonight.
all I said was we would table that one parcel until June, which would give everybody a chance to, I don't know what's going on with the property.
And I say table the whole thing until June. And then by then, maybe the city council will act. Or at least let us know with a little more specificity what the effect of the overlay is going to have on city property. Because that's really what we're talking about.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if
Sure.
I may interject here. I don't think that what the full extent of Charlie's motion, I don't believe you can do. You could approve and amend it as he has suggested. But you can't take up that one lot 1 month or 2 month, whatever it turns out to be in the future. So it's kind of in between what Charlie is saying and what Brett said. You could approve, you could amend and approve it, or you could approve it, or you could deny it. But you can't approve, amend, and then say we're going to take up rest of it later on. You understand
Well,
what I'm
it
saying?
could, what I'm saying though is that it could be noticed and brought before us as a potential addition to the historic overlay district.
Oh, at any point in time, yes, we could do that
Right,
for,
so I mean but what I think my point is, and the point of the vice chair, is that this sort of action is counterintuitive. It goes against the whole idea of having overlay districts. And it's spot zoning. And there's a lot of things about it that, but whatever. The motion is, as I understand it, to approve the historic overlay district except for the parcel containing St. John's School. And that motion's been made and seconded. Is there any more discussion on this motion? All right, the question's called. May we have a call of the roll, please, Ms. Graham?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Dellavecchia,
No.
Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
No.
Rich McNeil,
No.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
No.
Peter Burnett.
You're tied right now. I vote no. Motion fails.
No,
What was the vote?
no.
No, I know that.
It was 5-4.
5-4, no.
5-4, thank you.
5-4, no. Okay,
so you need another motion.
well, yes,
This motion failed.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we send the plan to the city council as it presented.
is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Second by Ms. Jenna. Any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. Yes,
Sure.
thanks. I'm going to ask either Dean or maybe Councilor Cheney. Is that something that council could do? Could the council say, God forbid, but could the council say, you know what? We've got issues with this one parcel, so we're going to approve it except for this parcel. Is that something the city council can do?
Technically, yes, because out of the dozens of properties, that would be considered a very minor change. You know, if we were talking about words, you know, you're going to change one little phrase and then adopt it, then it's not considered a substantive change. And yes, so from that standpoint, I think the council could do that. Whether they're willing to do that or not, I can't answer that question. And whether they should or not is also, I'm not, you know, I have no, I don't know, you know. But technically, I think yes. Practically is another matter, you know.
So,
Well, they are the sole legislative power for the city. They're the only ones that can make or amend an ordinance. The zoning overlay districts and zoning are the result of a zoning ordinance, right? So that's what I'm getting at, is that we do our job tonight. We send it to the city council and they will do with it what they will. And if they're the ones that have the knowledge that we can't talk about evidently, because it was in non-public session. So we'll give them something and say, here, do what you will with it. You're the ones that want to vend the property anyway. But I don't think it's proper for the planning department or the planning board to do that, because it's contrary to the basic principles of planning. We aren't a political board. I understand the pressures there, but I wasn't joking when I said just we do our job and then let the council do their job. And I think the The people from the whole Historic District Commission deserve that. They worked hard on this.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Right, so I'm going to vote yes on this. I tried to make it easy for the council, but now obviously you're right on this. So now I'm going to vote yes, because I'm going to depend on the council to, Bruce has said that this should have been clear sailing without this property. So not only do I expect them to do whatever they got to do, but if they do take this parcel out of the overlay, I would hope that the council will go along with the proposal and I guess I'm trying to think the word flavor of it. And if somebody is buying that property, that they will make sure that they go along with the spirit of the historical overlay, what's been proposed. So that's why, so I'm just saying that. It's my statement. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I heard you question Dean's representation that this will in effect put on hold the status of that property. I would remind you what Dean said was he spoke to corporate counsel, and they're the ones who said that means it's in the historic district until the council decides otherwise. I just encourage everyone on this board to reconsider. Perhaps we can put it off for a month. I'm asking for time for the council to be able to deal with the property in the short term. And I'm disappointed that you feel that you don't have an obligation to look at the possibility that this could interfere with things that are ongoing.
thank you, Counselor, but I think we are considering it. That's what we've been considering now for some time. We're not treating this lightly. We are a planning board. This is a planning tool, this overlay district. We want to encourage certain uses and discourage others within this district. And we want the buildings preserved. So if the city council wants something different, they are entitled to do it. That's all I'm saying. All right, are there any other comments about the motion that's pending? Well, sensing none, the motion, as I understand it, is to approve the historic overlay district as proposed and refer the matter to the city council for further action. All right, call the question. May we have a roll call, please?
Bruce Cheney,
No?
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Mike Dellavecchio,
Yes.
Kirk Biatti,
No.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
No.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. That's 6-3. The motion carries. All right, thank you, everybody. That was heavy lifting. Let me see what we got next. Too many windows open here. Dare I call Lakeside? Is there anyone here for 260 from the Tower Hill Tavern?
Yes,
Are you on the, or is he on the line?
he's on Zoom. Coming up.
Okay. Anthony,
Hello,
can you hear us?
I can hear you.
We can hear you too. How are you
Excellent.
doing? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. We got some pictures from you today.
Great.
Maybe you could explain what they are to us.
Basically all the pictures are the new air conditioning and heating system upstairs at Tower Hill Tavern, the insulation that we put in the roof, the new condensers that are outside for the AC and the heat.
Yeah.
And
So-
that's pretty much all the pictures that you see there. Everything else was done before. I have soundproofing in the walls.
Is that a heat pump system?
That is propane, heat, and electric air conditioning.
Oh, I see. Okay. The spray foam that I see in that last picture,
Yeah.
where is that? What part of the structure is that?
The spray foam is the whole ceiling. It's about, how many square feet is that? I think it's about 4,500 square feet of spray foam.
Wow. And
I
that's
know.
acoustic foam?
I'm spray foam insulation that's fire retardant.
Yeah. And is it sound proofing too?
It will, I mean, obviously the 4 inches of insulation is going to soundproof the building a lot better than it was before. So I would
Right.
say, yes, it's soundproofing, but I don't know if any sound engineers actually okayed it for a soundproof
So
system.
the,
Mostly, I just wanted to make sure it didn't light up if it caught fire.
right. But the picture of the doorway, can you explain that one for us?
That's a double doorway, so the sound doesn't get out. It has a hydraulic door hinges on it, so the doors close every time somebody comes out.
Okay. And the first picture, please.
What was the first picture? You're gonna have to refresh my memory.
I don't know. It looks sideways to me, but I don't know what I'm looking at.
It's probably the double doorway. There's one from outside, one from inside, so you can see which way the people are going in and out.
It's equipment of some sort. It must be part of the HVAC.
And it's probably the HVAC with the tubes going down the center of the
Right. I'm not
center of the
having
roof.
a hard time orienting. Is
Yeah.
are we looking down on it or is it right?
I'm
or
probably
is-
standing in the sound man's booth, and we're looking down towards the stage. You
Oh,
should be able to see 2 big tubes going down the center of the ceiling for the air conditioning and the heat.
and there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel, that the same as my mom always promised me there'd be.
That's the laser beam you're gonna see when it's your time.
Well, Anthony, it looks like you did what you said you were going to do.
I sure did.
We also received an email today.
Mhm.
Is Mr. Driscoll here or online? Okay, well, for the record, I'm going to read it into the record. From Joe Driscoll, Sunday, May 2nd, please distribute to members, Planning Board. We fully agree with the recommended conditions specific to the application, but still find a lack of clarification as to what enforcement mechanism will be used to see to compliance with the conditions. As you are aware, the Tower Hill Tavern has been the source of much neighborhood discord due to excessive noise. Everyone wants there to be a full range of entertainment and amusement opportunities for visitors and residents alike. However, the table of uses in the commercial resort zone includes residential and lodging uses as well, and does not establish any one use as the primary use within the zone. All uses are presumed to be appropriate and desirable uses. The intent is that all said uses combine into a harmonious whole where all users can thrive. We strongly feel that the only way the entire community with its disparate interests can thrive is if the planning board sets clear and consistent parameters, stands by them, and does not allow any one interest to dominate and abuse the others. Thank you for your attention. Joseph Driscoll, 59 Tower Street, Weirs Beach. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Driscoll. Sorry you can not be with us tonight. I guess are there any questions for the applicant from the board?
I have a question. Can you you share with us how much you've spent doing everything that you were asked?
I can. Give me a second.
He may not want to.
If you're comfortable, I'm just curious.
I'm always comfortable, but I would say I mean, I would say a little over $100,000.
Well, it looks like you spent it wisely.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes.
you open up to the public,
Yeah.
we have our third-party sound engineer, acoustics engineer
Yeah.
online, Eric
Oh.
Reeder. Eric was the sound engineer that looked at this project 8 years ago.
Right.
So we felt that he was the logical person to continue to look at this. And I would like Eric to explain to the board and the public what exactly it is that we're kind of proposing. You know, we have some details that we need to work out for sure, but there's a basic concept here that works and has worked elsewhere that we just want to make sure everybody is fully understand. So if that would be okay with you, I'd like to do that.
You're talking, that's in reference to enforcement, right?
Monitoring and enforcement, yes.
Yeah, okay, sure. We would love to hear from you.
Get Eric.
Hi, everyone. This is Eric. As Dean said, I was involved with the project when Anthony first opened the second floor there. I guess it was 8 years ago. I didn't realize it had been that long. Working for the planning board at that time and doing the same this time. And what we've come up with and what I proposed to the planning department was that we do some measurements during a performance of some sort, either an actual performance or a mock performance to kind of simulate what the noise impacts will be with the design upgrades that have been done, and try to get a handle on the transfer function, the difference between the sound level indoors and the sound level at various locations around the property. And that would give us a kind of baseline reference level so that they would be able to tell based on measurements inside the venue what impact it's having outside. You know, that whatever that difference is between the indoors and each location, whatever those differences are constant. So and will scale. And what I've done in other venues is install a monitoring system, basically a sound level meter that has some very simple output or display that a mixing engineer can look at without having to, consider what the numbers mean. Something like a stoplight arrangement that kind of says you're getting a little too loud, you're definitely too loud, or it's fine. And use that to monitor continuously and allow them to, understand in real time what impact the venue's having off of the property. So that's the proposal that I made to the planning department. And that's as far as we've gotten at this point.
Would this be a device that would be attached to Anthony's property, a fixed location?
Exactly, yeah.
And it would be tamper-proof of some sort, and I mean, in a location, somebody can't steal it or something.
Right, it would be indoors, actually measuring sound levels indoors and using that as a predictor of the sound levels outdoors. So it would be inside the building.
So you're gonna hire a band and go to Tower Hill, make them play, tell them to turn it up on 11, just like Spinal Tap. And then you're gonna measure the sound levels outside and inside until you figure out what the threshold is, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting idea. But from an enforcement standpoint, if the device is not outside, it wouldn't be accessible to the police because the police are the ones that end up getting the noise complaints.
Right,
They don't call the planning department on a Saturday night.
yeah. Well, the problem that always exists with trying to do a measurement with an automated device or even with an operator in a handheld device is that there are so many other sources of sound in the environment when you're outdoors that it can be very difficult, even for a trained operator, to distinguish the contributions of those sources. You know, in an area like Weir's Beach, where in the summer where there's a lot going on, looking at a number on a sound level meter is, you know, it's difficult to say whether that number is attributable to the venue or to motorcycles going by or, you know, other sources of sound in the environment. And so anytime you want to, you know, under any condition, whether it's an entertainment venue or a power plant or a fan or a chiller, anytime you want to calculate the contribution or assess the contribution of a particular source to an overall soundscape, you do it by getting as close to that source as you can so that it dominates the measurement. So it's possible. You know, I've never been to Weir's Beach when this venue is in use. The work that I did was during the permitting, and then I wasn't involved, you know, in the interim. It's possible that there's an outdoor location where you could confidently measure the contribution of the venue, but I don't know that for sure. You know, I've never attempted that. So, and with the upgrades that have been done, it may be that that's impractical. So,
my concern is that this is the May meeting. We'll only have one more meeting before Bike Week. We should probably move with all deliberate speed to set up an objective standard of some sort, because of, you know, the season is about to come upon us. Dean, what do you think from an enforcement standpoint?
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
how does it help if the sound man knows when to turn down? That's great.
Well, the other part of this proposal is that the data, i.e. the peaks and valleys of the sound would be not recorded, that's not the right word, but data stored, which would be accessible by city staff. Now, whether that
it would be a record of the decibel levels.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And you just
then we could access it after the fact.
Okay.
And potentially we could make police department accessible to the data as well. We have not worked out those details. I you know, that's an IT technical thing that needs to occur, and I don't foresee an issue doing that, but we have not worked out those details. So, I mean, it's a combination of real-time monitoring so that the sound man or the managers or the bar manager or whatever it happens to be, you know, maybe they're just, you know, they got a DJ or whatever it is, can know that, okay, at this point in time, we are exceeding the limit. So therefore we've got to turn it down until we get a yellow light or a green light or whatever the representation is. And from our standpoint, we'd be looking at, we would be looking at data after the fact to see how quickly the reaction time is. Obviously, if you're in the red for an hour, then, you know, people aren't doing their job. If you're in the red for 30 seconds or a minute, and then you're not, then the system is doing its job, and so is everyone else. So, I mean, you know, those are the things that need to occur. And as I'm sure you've all read our staff recommendations, there are a couple of issues that the planning board needs to decide that were ambiguous the last time around. And we need to make that less ambiguous, obviously, so that we can actually set a level and then monitoring it and then enforce it.
Okay, so will we be ready to have this matter voted on in the June meeting? We have no conditions that we can establish tonight.
We do
The
not.
engineering has not
You
yet
could,
been done.
you could, you could
Remember,
approve,
you know,
you could approve
let me-
with
let me-
staff recommendations, and we will work out the details with a couple
Okay,
of
but
clarifications here.
that's
Or
what happened 8 years ago.
well, the idea of having an online monitoring system was not part of the approval previously.
I'm just saying that we should be more specific this time. We should include the technical specs. Because, well, he didn't comply with it for 8 years and he came to amend it. That's where we're at. We're not gonna it wouldn't make sense for us to say, well, we accept the staff's recommendation and we'll leave it to them to work out the details, because the details is what this is all about.
Okay, that's
It's
fine,
about
Peter.
the sound, and it's a really hard enforcement issue. And
Yes,
if we
it is.
just leave it wishy, if we don't have a clear enforcement mechanism, we are not responding properly to public input. And we should have been ready to do this tonight, because Anthony's got Bike Week coming up next month.
What that has to do with this?
I understand, Mr. Chairman, and believe me, we're all trying to attack this in a timely manner. As you know, everyone's busy, everyone, and I'm talking about the professionals that we're dealing with. They've got timelines that are not connected
know.
with the city of Laconia, so.
There's so much construction going on right now in the city. It's amazing.
Can I make a comment about that too?
Sure.
So I understand the 8-year thing, but at the same time, if someone spent over $100,000 at this point that has that vested into it, I can't imagine it's not gonna continue so that he can comply with everything. That's my thought.
I think he can, but what I'm saying is we're not doing him any favors if we leave it in some vague discretion. You see what I mean? Because that's how we got there was a dispute with the neighbors about what constituted excessive noise. That's the very issue that we're not prepared to decide today. That's all I'm saying. You could make a motion to accept it and leave it up to the board, but I'm concerned that that's just what we did 8 years ago.
But is this really a planning board issue for enforcement? Do we look at people, how they design the roads to keep people from speeding on it? That's an enforcement issue. I think
Right.
what we're looking at here is extending his hours. He did all of this stuff to minimize it. Is it up to the planning board to see how we enforce it?
Good
The other
question.
question is, where's the police department's input on how they're gonna force it? Because they're gonna be the ones called when there's a complaint.
Yep. That's what I mean. There had to be an objective standard. I mean, they're not gonna go in and ask to speak to the sound man.
I also want to point out that a lot of the objections that some of the abutters and neighborhood people down there had were dealing more specifically with the outdoor music. And that was a special COVID thing that was allowed by the city council. This specifically is for indoor operations.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Let's let's open a public hearing. We have to have one more public hearing, right? Let's open a public hearing and then after that, we can have motions galore. So I'm gonna declare the public hearing open at 7:47. Are there any members of the public or abutters that wish to be heard this evening?
Mr. Chair, my name is Ethan Wood. I'm an attorney with Normandin, Cheney and O'Neill. I represent Brames Incorporated, and specifically Robert and Michael Ames, who are abutters to the property. While we certainly acknowledge the effort that Mr. Santagate has put into soundproofing his building, it is important to note that this is now 7 years after it was supposed to have been done. While we are cautiously optimistic that the plan put forth by staff will effectively mitigate the issues that arise, one of the things that we would specifically request is that prior to any approval, the board conduct a site visit during the testing to experience whether or not the mitigation efforts that Mr. Santagate has put forth are effective in decreasing the noise.
Well, that's why we have
There is
the sound engineer. Right?
We
I think.
understand. I'm sorry.
Please let him finish, Anthony, and I'll give you a chance, okay?
Well, we understand that there is a time constraint with regard to Motorcycle Week. I don't think that Motorcycle Week is the primary driver of the issues that exist with this property. And so respectfully, we would request that the board schedule a time with the sound engineer to go out and actually experience the mitigation efforts that Mr. Santagate has begun and determine whether or not they are effective. And if so, then I think that you can set appropriate decibel levels and consider this for approval. If, on the other hand, these efforts are ultimately unsuccessful in mitigating the neighborhood issues, then clearly there needs to be some other approach that's taken.
Thank you, Attorney Wood. Are there any,
Or answer any questions that you may have.
yes, any questions for Attorney Wood?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
Counselor, isn't, when you said the appropriate decimals, you have something in mind what is appropriate? Because in my
No, I do not.
experience as a former business person up there, when the police were called by someone, not your clients, but other locals up there, the accepted decimal, if I didn't go over 100 decimals, I was good. If it was over 100 decimals, now, granted, I'm going back a number of years, but if it was over 100 decimals, I had a problem that I had to fix. If it was under that, I was good. So I'm asking you, is 100 decimals something that your clients think is fine?
I'm not in a position to speak to what the appropriate decibel level would be. I'm not a sound engineer. What I can tell you is that the existing site plan requires that there be no noise that's clearly audible 50 feet from the boundary line.
I know about that.
And so my suggestion is that we try and work within that existing criteria and see what that is as far as decibel levels go. And that would determine what the set decibel should be. And in that regard, I think it would be instructive for the board to.
Sure. I would just remind you
On-site.
that motorcycle infractions with people with loud pipes when they're pulled over, the 100 decimal that's the cutoff. That's noise. So whether it's a motorcycle or a car or music, I would hope that the 100 decibel would be acceptable. I know about the 50-foot. I don't understand that because I can yell and be heard 50 feet away. So I'm not, I mean, 50 feet, I don't even know how, from this
From
here
one
to
corner
that,
to the other.
I don't even know if this is 50 feet or how far this is. So I never understood that. I think it's crazy, but That's not for me to decide. So I'm just wondering about the decibel level that you talked about. That's all, but thank you.
Well, and again, I can't speak to what the decibels are because it's my understanding. And again, the enormous caveat, I'm not a sound engineer.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding they change based on weather conditions, time
Sure.
of day,
Sure.
ambient noise, et cetera. So again, the goal here is not to put Mr. Sandegate out of business or to end it. It's to mitigate the issues that are being caused by the operation of his business to the greatest extent possible. And whatever that number happens to be, as long as it mitigates the issue, my clients are certainly happy to do so. We would additionally note, while not directly in the purview of this board, the licensing board did approve an outdoor stage permit and amplification permit for this property. And I think that's an issue that would be contrary to the existing site plan as well. So thank you very much. I'm certainly happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Any other questions for Attorney Wood? Okay. Well, let's, is there anyone else, any other member of the public that wants to speak? Any abutters?
We have some
Do we have
people
anyone?
online, sir.
They are, okay. Somebody want to identify themselves and speak? This is your opportunity. Just say your name if you would and where you live and that to let us know.
I want to make sure it's for everybody else too.
And
Hello?
turn your speakers off. Speakers are feeding back. Hello,
Hi,
welcome.
this is Megan.
Megan, could you state your full name for the record, please?
Megan Doptis.
Okay.
I'm the general manager of Tower Hill
Yes,
and the
you
big
are.
house.
How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Just listening to everybody talking. And we understand all the things we've worked really hard to comply and make things the way that they're supposed to be. But my question is this: if there's a certain level and anything put into place, is that going to be put into place for every venue in Laconia that plays music?
Not unless they come back to the planning board for some reason. I mean, it's a council, the city council can do whatever they want. They could set a curfew if they wanted. So we're not doing that. As I understand it, what we are contemplating is whether to approve tonight with the understanding that the sound engineer is going to work with city officials, including the police, to set up something that is an objective standard so that the bar staff doesn't have to do anything. You know, you guys will be busy enough. I like the idea of the light. I think that's great.
So to work with that sound engineer, is that going to cost us the money or is the city going to pay for that?
I have no idea.
There's
Usually
just
the
so many different things, you know, different questions that go along with what is being said, you know,
Well,
for all of the stipulations.
The city is certainly not going to pay for any improvements to Mr. Sandia's property.
No, we've already paid for all of that, all the improvements, but to get the
sound engineer is considered,
as you said, to
That's-
hire a band and have someone come and test it and then install, you know, install maybe possibly the online decibel readings.
well, you can do it with a PA and white noise too. It doesn't have to be a band. What he's going to do is take sound pressure level readings at various distances, try to establish a standard. That's what I think. Well,
Right,
I'm saying we can't, we don't know what the specific recommendations are going to be regarding sound mitigation.
It's about $4,500 to $5,000 just to get the sound engineer to come here. So we're just trying to figure out how this is all going to work. I mean,
Yep.
after the, already minimum 100,000 that's been spent. Just trying to understand everything.
Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments?
Not
Okay.
at this current time, no.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public or abutters that would like to be heard? Any other members of the public or abutters that would like to be heard regarding Tower Hill?
Mr. Chair, I'm promoting them now. There are a few.
Okay.
Mute. I'm sorry, my Zoom went down just at that instant. Am I heard?
Yes, Dennis, you are with us.
Okay, is it my turn to speak or should I shut up?
No, it is your turn to speak. Please just
Hey,
state it for the record.
thank you, Chairman. Dennis Golubiewski, I live at 19 Foster. And in short, Joe Driscoll wrote a letter and most of that is to be applauded. And I can't add a whole heck of a lot. I have a couple of other comments, though. There are statements regarding the bar district and it's Bike Week and it's important to get this done. Bike Week's important to everybody who has a business here. And I would wish that the same respect be given to them. In short, if we have a noise issue, it spills over onto other businesses during Bike Week. It's their important time. Or if not, I applaud Mr. Anthony for doing everything he's done. I'm very impressed. It's cost of doing business, though. Every other city in the world. I lived next door to the largest music venue in Toronto for most of my life, and I didn't hear a sound. So, unfortunately, it's a cost of doing business. I hope that most of what we're looking for, those of us in our community here, where we all can live and play together, So that's really about it for me. I had a whole bunch of other things. Joe Driscoll's letter addressed most of it. I thank the board for saying the three important words. We're going to monitor, we're going to enforce, and consequences. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dennis. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard, Mr. Mora?
Yep, just one moment, please.
Sure thing. He's our gatekeeper. I guess that makes him the sergeant at arms, right? The armless sergeant. I'm not sure which. Better than being Roland the Headless Thompson gunner.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes, Mr. Ames, welcome.
Hello there.
What do you have to say for us tonight?
Well, I'm very encouraged by the idea that you're going to hire a sound engineer, that he's going to do these measurements, that you're going to have monitoring, and that you're going to have specific limits for what is going to meet the requirement of the 50-foot audible as is in his site plan approval. I think that's all very encouraging, especially the idea that if he goes over it for an extended period of time, that it's not just an accident, but it's an oversight, and that there'll be some kind of enforcement mechanism with the police for when he breaks these limits. I think it's all very encouraging, and I hope that's what happens here, because even though Anthony has spent, according to him, $100,000 on this project, there's still ways that it can be broken very easily. For instance, he still hasn't fixed his windows, which can be open wide open. And for the last 7 years, we've been exposed to very loud noise when he's opened those windows, even though he was never supposed to open them. And we're worried that even though he has the air conditioning and the sound insulation and the double door system, that he might still decide to open his windows because it's helpful to him to attract people up into his venue because they hear the music with the windows open where they might not with it closed. So we just think that this needs to be done to keep him honest on this requirement. And we're hopeful that the board will see to it that the staff recommendations are approved. And I did want to mention also that we do have a separate issue with the outdoor stage, which we don't see how that's in any way compatible with him trying to be quiet when he has outdoor music. But that is, I understand that is a separate issue from what the proceedings here tonight, but I did just want to mention that.
Yep, we understand that would be part of the whole ambient noise situation. Are there any other members of the public that would like to be heard?
Mr. Chair, that's everybody that has identified themselves that wishes to speak for or against the application.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Then I will close the public hearing at 8:03 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Where are we on the agenda now? Oh, yes. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Peter Ed Bonas, I have a question.
Sure.
Can, as part of whatever motion we make, and I don't know if it's feasible, could that motion include that the city of Laconia hire at their own expense a sound level monitor to sit at tower whenever they're open and give the board readings on a minute by minute basis so we know exactly what the noise levels are inside and outside?
We can't appropriate funds, so we
Okay.
can't order that. We could recommend it to the city council. But normally these sorts of things are the applicant's responsibility, not the city's.
I have a question too. As a
Correct.
planning board, we cannot adjust, amend, or reduce any town ordinances, can we? As such as like noise pollution or the enforcement of such?
That's correct. That's correct.
Mr. Chair,
But if I understand it correctly, and Dean, this is your chance to jump up. The staff is confident that if we approve it and leave a contingency in there regarding the sound engineer's report and recommendations of the installation, if anything, that needs to be done, and leave that up to the staff to work out with the applicant. I think that's what Dean would have us do.
That certainly is one thing you could do. From an enforcement standpoint, if with the installation of the monitoring and the storage of the data, if there is consistent can't think of the word, violation for lack of a better word. That's not the right word, but if there was consistent,
Non-compliance.
what are you saying?
Non-compliance.
Non-compliance, thank you, that's the word. Then what we would do is we would bring it back to the planning board and make the case, and you could revoke the approval.
Yeah, like we could have done in the last 7 years, right?
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Sure, Mr. Cheney.
Dean, can you give the board some idea of how much time you think you need to come up with these conditions?
I've only had a brief discussion with the acoustic engineer. He needs a couple of days to go on site, do his measurements. They need to be done at night, and that is part of his plan. It doesn't have to be a band. It could be just put on a radio station and play it loud, over the loudspeakers, or the sound system would be the more appropriate term. And you get it to a level, and then you go outside and you measure outside and say, okay, at this level, you're good outside. And you jack it up a little bit inside, and maybe you're not good outside anymore. So now you know what the level is. So that's a couple of days worth of work, and then figuring out what the system should be, and it would be done in the office. So there's some time obviously there. We have a not to exceed cost for Eric's work to do all of that. We don't know exactly what the cost of the actual system is yet, because we don't know what the actual system is going to be, but it is, quite frankly, a few $1,000s.
This is the system that,
Would monitor and record the data.
that's not installed yet.
Correct.
I believe that I could go on Amazon right now and I could find a device that could continuously measure sound pressure levels and upload them to the cloud via Wi-Fi. And it wouldn't be $5,000.
Yeah.
I bet it exists. It's an actual item.
Yeah.
And that way, if the police come out, they'll say, well, we'll have to take a look at the recording to see how loud it really was, ma'am, and we'll get back to you.
Right. We would have the data, it would be there.
We would have the data, and that would remind us that we have an enforcement obligation. So we
Correct.
can look at it and say, well, it looks like he was all within the limits. And if that was linked to a system, a visual cue for the sound operator, and don't forget, not all bands have sound men. They set it up and they run the sound on the stage. There's going to be some visual cue. If they're consistently loud, that would be easy enough. It could be a light at the back of the room.
Right.
So,
and ultimately it is the responsibility of the management of the venue, regardless of whether it's a band or whether it's a DJ or whether it's, you're just playing music from satellite radio or whatever, to, their overall responsibility.
maybe we should ask Eric, can this be done in the next 30 days?
That was my question.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll kick that to Eric.
I think so. I've had a few thoughts as I've heard the testimony here. The original work that I did was kind of predictive. This is what, based on the construction, we think the levels will be when a band's playing. And then there was, as far as I know, nobody's ever measured it either in the condition over the past 7 or 8 years, and certainly not with the upgrades. So we don't really have any idea what to expect as far as levels outside the building. So it's going to take a little bit of experimentation to come up with those numbers. Recommending the equipment. I have a system at Prescott Park down here in Portsmouth that addresses a very similar concern. Although that's an outdoor venue, so it's a little different. And it's also owned by the city, so it's a little less complicated. The who owns what question. There are a couple of different products that will do what we're describing here. I don't know of anything that's a consumer grade. One of the problems with that is that if you can't calibrate the equipment, then the data don't really have any legal meaning. It's difficult to do enforcement without some kind of type class, certified equipment. So that's a decision that we'll have to make, and also being able to interface it with the custom hardware and lights and things. So I just wanted to caution that it probably isn't an inexpensive solution, but obviously we'll try to come up with something that's cost effective. But I think the
Right.
timeline is feasible.
And I think as part of that, once we pick an evening that Eric is going to be there, that we certainly could inform the board of
We-
that
We
time.
could have
And if they wanted
special
to
meeting.
join and, observe, I think that would be a way of satisfying the request from Attorney Woods for a site walk. It wouldn't be an official site walk, but if 2 or 3 members were able to attend and observe and then report on that later on, I think that would be helpful. And I know there's probably more discussion here, but before we move on, I want to be clear that I need some direction from the board tonight. And that is, if you look at the staff recommendation 4A, the sentence that is in quotations, there shall be no noise from this commercial establishment that is plainly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the lot line. Is that 50 feet into the abutter's property? Is that 50 feet on Mr. Santigate's side of the property line? I don't know, and there's nothing in the minutes or the record from 2012 and 13 that would indicate which side of the line they're talking about. Personally, I think it would be easier to just say at the lot line and be done with it, and then it's not ambiguous at all.
50 feet from,
No, at the lot line.
Wouldn't we rather not use that language at all and just
Well, yeah,
say,
I'm getting to that, but it's a 2-part question. The plainly audible thing is also ambiguous, obviously, but I think that's what we would be looking for Eric to do. And we would certainly, the evening that he is there to do his measurements, that the planning board would be invited to, we certainly could make the abutters aware that's the night that it's going to happen. And if they want to join, there are issues with picking a decibel level because everybody responds differently. And as has been mentioned, different noise at different times of the day is heard differently because of the available ambient background noise. A lawnmower at 6 a.m. is different than a lawnmower at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. A music at 6 p.m. on a summer night is different than music at 11 p.m. on a summer night. I think we all understand that. And if someone were talking at the property line, if 2 individuals were talking at the property line, and a normal voice, normal level of voice, someone in the adjacent property may consider that to be loud, or they may not consider it to be loud, depending upon any number of factors in their own individual, preferences and perceptions. So decibel levels is a real hard thing to pick, but I think it's kind of like if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, that it's a duck. And if it's too loud, it's too loud. So I think that evening, and we're out there doing these measurements, that we kind of got to pick a level that makes sense. And yes, it'll be a decibel reading, but that fluctuates a little bit from time to time. So, I mean, the key is if you put a monitor outside, which we are not proposing, it is subject to outside noises. A fire engine going by with a siren, a loud motorcycle, a teenage kid with the bumpa 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 bass, and et cetera, is going to be picked up on this monitor along with everything else. So we feel, and I've talked with Eric about this, we feel the best solution to this is to measure what's going on inside, establish what the maximum level inside can be. That then translates to an acceptable level on the outside, regardless of the source, whether it's a band or whether it's a DJ or whether it's just piped in music. It could be a very wild wedding that's got 200 people all screaming and yelling, could produce the same obnoxious noise that people don't want to hear either. So it's not necessarily the exact source of the noise, but rather how the noise impacts the abutters, and that's what we're trying to address. And I fully understand, Mr. Chair, that this has been an issue for years, and people have complained about it for years. But the actual sound monitoring was not proposed in the previous approval. And I think this is a big step forward.
And it's been an obvious need from the very beginning, because we knew that the language, the 50 feet rule was too ambiguous.
So if I could get consensus from the board that we're going to deal with this from property line as opposed to 50 feet one way or the other, that would be very, very helpful to me.
How can we do that without the technical piece?
I just want to know where to measure from.
Right, and I think we need to do the site visit first, because you need to be able to measure where the sound becomes unacceptable at that level. And then we can say, okay, well, as long as you're always going to be hearing it. If you're listening to it, you hear a lot of noises up there. I think what you're saying, though, is that you don't have enough information in order to produce a condition that we could approve tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah. But what I want to avoid is the situation that we have now, where there's an ambiguity that I can't resolve. Is it 50 feet into the abutters land, or is it 50 feet into the applicant's land, or where is that 50 feet? It is not defined. It is not referenced in any of the minutes or the notes or presentations. And so I have no idea. And those are two very different points where you're going to measure from. If you're 50 feet inside the applicant's property, that's one measurement. If you're 50 feet into the abutter's property, that's another measurement, even though the sound level has not changed.
Mr. Chair, can I make a statement?
Sure.
I think at that point you have to go with the property line, because that's what the owner controls. If you talk about emissions, if you talk about stormwater management, everything is your property line. You cannot let anything go past a certain level outside of your property line. So any measurements done have to be from the property line.
Good point.
I can comment on that 50 feet. That's a somewhat common measurement distance. It's always beyond the property lines, would be into the abutters or commonly into public property. And you see it in cities a lot, where you have a zero property line situation everywhere, where you can't, if you measure out the property line, it's a brick wall or whatever. So like the city of Cambridge, for example, has that 50-foot thing. So that's probably where the language came from. I wasn't involved in recommending that, and would not have.
So Eric, let me ask you this. Even if we do the property line 50 feet in, 50 feet out, how can you certify that that decibel is coming from that facility and not surrounding factors like a motorcycle going by? To me, it seems better what you have proposed. You measure inside and outside, and that way you get the dampening effect of the structure itself. So then you can set a level for inside where it's controlled, and that includes people screaming, people dancing, the music, all of that noise that's generated from inside. You set the decibel where that owner can control it, and you know the dampening that it will reduce it to X number outside.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's going to be the most successful way to attack this, because otherwise you would have to, you'd have to actually record sound if you wanted any sense later on of what created a exceedance, whether it's a motorcycle or, fire truck or whatever. But if you're inside, it's unlikely that anything that creates a significant sound level originated outside the building.
Right. And also, I think we might just be spinning our wheels here, because we need to test it to see. It could be that from the improvements that have been done to it, as long as he keeps the windows done, that building is soundproof. It could be that the people's eardrums inside are bursting before you hear anything outside. But we're sitting here beating ourselves up about this. We need to do an evaluation first of the dampening qualities of the construction now that the improvements have been done, and then move forward after that.
You're absolutely right, Brett. And the question that comes to mind is, why wasn't this already done? Why isn't it finished for us tonight in the May meeting? So now what we'll have to do is a site visit and a vote on the June meeting, which means he misses Memorial Day weekend. Why wasn't the sound engineer engaged earlier? We talked about it. This thing was continued for 4 months in a row.
So the first question probably should be to Mr. Sandegate. When are the improvements going to be to a point where everything is buttoned up like it's going to be, to where we can go out and measure the sound?
This week. Can you hear me?
Yes, we heard you say this week.
Well, yeah, it's pretty much done. I've called Eric once and made sure I tried to set up a meeting beforehand to get all this done. You know how much money I spent, and I need to be open for Wake the Lake upstairs.
When is that?
May 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
Is that Memorial Day weekend or the one before?
It's the weekend before.
Weekend before, okay.
I have bands booked.
Do you have any bands booked in this coming week in that room?
I have one on the 15th if you want to come out.
Well, I'm game.
Excellent. Great
Maybe
band.
we
You'll
could
enjoy it.
We could adjourn the meeting to your establishment.
Great. I really
Well,
like that.
Yeah. Well, anyone's somebody will have to leave it up to the staff to make an arrangement, but I think if we do a site visit at the time that the sound engineer is working, we can walk the property, we can go to the neighbors and see how loud it is for ourselves.
Excellent.
And then, but then the problem is the next time we meet is in June, so you wouldn't have your conditional use permit. You'd still be subject to the discernible at 50 feet thing.
Okay.
Which, I don't know if you can do that. That's still a question.
Is there any way that we can do a temporary approval?
Exactly.
Well, we can make a condition of approval that further action be taken on them, and for, like, postpone the final approval of this condition until the expert has submitted their report or something. Right, Dean? I think we could do that. I mean, the staff recommendation that is the most onerous is the taking out the language in the absence of a standard to substitute for that.
Well, when is Eric available next?
I don't know. We'll have to work that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we do tonight? Dean, help us out here. What do you think we should do tonight?
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Go right ahead.
I would like to approve it till 1 a.m., automatically expiring on July 31st.
I second that motion.
Okay, would the maker of the motion like to explain it?
Give him a chance. He's got 3 months to prove that he can keep the neighbors happy, keep his business thriving. If there's issues, it expires July 31st, automatically, no matter what. He'll have to come before the board. I think it's August 2nd is our next meeting in August, our first meeting in August, and reapply. If there's issues, we could discuss it. If everything's good, we grant it.
Can I?
In
Can I
the,
make-
in the
Mr.
meantime,
Chair?
in other words, he would be allowed to use the upstairs venue.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question? On that
Sure.
August, or it expires the end of July 31st.
Correct.
Our next meeting's not till August when?
Third.
Second, third? So that's, means a weekend where he can't do this.
Okay, I can amend that.
So what I'm thinking is that you could have it expire, I don't know, halfway. In other words, so it,
August 1st is a Sunday.
yeah,
Let's call it, let's say August 2nd.
and we could pick it up the
It
next
will
night.
expire August 2nd.
How about we do this? How about we approve it only until the August meeting? So it'll be in effect until the August meeting. It'll be on a Tuesday.
Well, we have to grant it, but it automatically expires no matter what.
On that day.
August 2nd.
Right, so,
Right.
but then we could, then it could be voted on for that, on that August meeting. And
August
go back
3rd,
in-
I'm sorry.
And go back into effect immediately.
Correct.
One
Yeah,
way or
that's
the
what I'm
other.
saying. That's July 31 is kind of arbitrary. Might as well just extend it to the next meeting. By then, all the technical stuff will hopefully be done. And that will give Anthony an opportunity to make nice with the neighbors and show them that it really does work when you put all the insulation and the heating and AC. That's going to be huge. Because when you're running the AC, you can't open the windows.
Mr. Chair?
So, yes, Mr.
May I-
Cease here.
May I ask Anthony a question?
No.
Of course you may.
Okay, Anthony,
Just wanted to make sure that he would have to
I'm here.
thank you. Robert Ames brought up a good point about
Yes.
the windows.
Yes.
Because he's absolutely right. If somebody opens those windows when there's a band playing, whether it's at night, well, especially at night, that's gonna defeat everything you've poured all this money into.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
So what do you plan to do about that?
Well, I already measured the windows out and I'm gonna be purchasing windows from ABC Supply Company because I'm not gonna open the windows if the air conditioning's on. It just
So-
doesn't make any sense.
So the windows are gonna be solid?
Solid windows until I put the porch out there, then I'm gonna have,
Okay, before you jump
once I
ahead
put
to
the
the
porch
porch,
out there, I'm gonna have some sliding glass doors, but I'll make sure they're closed when the music's playing. How's that?
okay, so the windows will be obviously thick, they'll have to be thick glass.
Yeah, they're double pane because we're gonna be opening all year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
question, Charlie. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Can we also, by that date, have the staff's final recommendations and requirements for equipment, et cetera?
Absolutely.
So that when we go
That-
forward, we'll know we have the standard in place as well.
Does the maker of the motion agree to that amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the motion as it is now is that we are going to grant him a conditional approval that expires on August, is it the 2nd? We keep saying
August
this,
2nd, yeah.
3.
August 2nd. At which point, we will hear the staff's report regarding the sound remediation. And give it its, and make, and put it on the agenda and notice it for final approval at that time. Okay? Does everyone know that now what we're voting on? Did I get it right? Okay, well,
Before we move on, Mr. Chair, if I could ask the maker of the motion and the maker of the second to add to their motion that as part of this proposal, the applicant would be reapplying. It would be a new application, so that triggers public hearing and notices and et cetera, et cetera. So that would be basically a new application.
So I have a question if I can, Dean. By doing that whole new application, would that still be able to be all taken care of in one meeting, or would that automatically make it go to another meeting?
I can never guarantee what you people are going to do at a meeting.
But technically, it could all be done
And
that
I
night.
gotta, and this is a joke, but I gotta check with my buddy, Mr. Canton, and see if he's gonna be in later on this summer for some more improvements. We want to make sure we schedule this issue on the same night again, because he's been suffered a lot.
The answer is yes.
Anyway, we should have, certainly in that amount of time frame, we would have everything that we need to know, and hopefully it should be installed, it should be running, we should be able to see how it's been going for some time by the time that rolls around. So, yeah, it should
To be clear,
should be a one meeting thing, but that's up
Right.
to you guys.
Thank you.
this is about noise abatement and enforcement. That's going to be decided at that August meeting.
Right, right.
All right, so we have a motion pending. Any further discussion on this motion? All right, sensing none
Can we
then,
be sure that we know what the motion is from
I'll
the
say it
recording
again.
secretary?
Yeah, I'll say it again. The motion is to approve the application, the CUP. But said approval is to expire on the same day as the next meeting of the August meeting, August 2nd. And that at
Third.
that meeting, staff will,
Third.
August 3rd, and at that meeting, staff will have specific recommendations based upon the sound remediation experts testing and reports. And we'll make the site visit optional, not part of the move, not part of the motion. I didn't hear that as part of the motion, but I'm going up.
And that they then have to reapply,
Mhm.
as I
Well,
understood it,
they won't have to reapply if we approve it that night.
and notice to
Notice a public hearing again, same application. The thing is if we don't continue it, it ceases to exist and he'd have to apply again. But we're not anticipating that happening.
No.
So, all right, any other discussion on the motion? All right, sensing none, then I will ask Kalina to call the roll, please.
Bruce Janey,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Dellavecchio,
Yes.
Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Great big yes.
Edwin Bonas,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes, but mine's bigger than Brett's.
It's the biggest.
All right, so the motion carries. You've done a lot, Anthony. Stick with us. We will, we'll get this done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Hey, no
Eric.
problem. Okay, so we have next on our agenda.
That's painful.
I know.
Is that agenda? There it is. Is there someone here from the Taylor home? people, Taylor community. Looks like the next one is PL 2021-0044 SP 435 Union Avenue.
You need to do an acceptance of this, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. Do we have a motion to accept the application?
Motion to accept, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Delvecchio,
Is that,
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Belvo,
Yes.
Edwin Bonas,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Okay, the application has been accepted. Is Mr. Skegel here tonight?
Hi, yes.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Nick Schedule from Steve Smith and Associates, professional engineer, and the applicant for Taylor Community on this project. This is my first time doing it by Zoom, so I think I can share my screen. Maybe I can't, but this is a site plan amendment for what's called the Woodside Pavilion area. It's a recreational. Yeah, I can share my screen. Thanks, Rob. So you should be able to see my screen now. It's an existing conditions plan showing the existing area that was approved for a recreational parking area. There's garden beds, shuffleboard, a pavilion for outdoor barbecues and just gathering for the community. Our proposal for this evening to amend the site plan to include a 24-foot by 4-foot storage building, three bay garage building, which will store equipment and I guess equipment. Yeah, it's not really vehicles, but equipment that's used at the pavilion. So furniture and anything that's associated with the pavilion area, might be gardening tools or something like that. And I do have a architectural view of the building. Stewart and Associates did an architectural, so that's the idea. It will have a slab on grade construction with a thickened slab and drainage stone underneath for frost protection, and then a foundation drain, footing drain to collect any stormwater runoff that's generated in the area that doesn't infiltrate. And that stormwater that foundation drain will discharge over the slope that's to the south and east of the building.
Yep.
There's
pretty much a ridge that runs through there, right?
Yeah,
just
there's
about the Guilford Laconia line, and a power line runs through there too.
Yeah. There's kind of a drainage ravine, I'll call it, that runs from the northeast to the southwest.
Right.
But our site is kind of in this little kettle hole that's here. And so we're going to kind of fill in that hole, utilize stormwater infiltration around the building. It'll have a stone drip edge for the roof. And then there's pervious pavement that's existing there that'll remain and take some of the stormwater and infiltrate into the ground that way. We did do a stormwater report on the additional impervious and ran that through a H&H modeling to confirm that there's no increase in the stormwater runoff for the project. And there's no increase in parking demand or water or sewer use for the building either. So that's, short and sweet, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pretty
Mr.
straightforward. Yeah.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Schedule? All right, well, let's open the public hearing. It is 8:42 PM. Public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public or abutters that wish to be heard?
Mr. Chair, nobody has identified themselves that they wish to speak here in person or online for or against this application.
All right, thank you very much. Now close the public hearing at 8:42 PM. And we'll hear from staff.
Staff is recommending approval. You see the conditions of approval that we are recommending. There is nothing unusual here. This is, as Nick just said, this is very straightforward and fairly simple. And we're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Short and sweet. Any questions for staff on this application? These are the woods I played in as a boy. I grew up at 507 Union Ave. And it amazes me how much development's gone on up there. It was like a dream for us when we were kids, you know. A lot of ledge. They must have done some blasting up there. Okay, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'm going to make a motion that we accept PL 2021-0044 SP for 435 Union Ave to include the staff recommendations.
You mean to approve, not accept, right?
Yes, to approve.
To approve. All right. Any further discussion on this motion? Rich, did you have your hand up?
No, I was going to second it.
Oh, I thought we already had a second, but
okay,
we have a third. We can have thirds. We can even have four if you want. Okay, any discussion on the motion, which is duly made and seconded? Sensing none, I'll call the question. Kalina, would you please call the roll?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Mike Delavecchia,
Yes.
Kirk Piatti,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
yes,
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Edwin Bones,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries. The approval is granted. Good job, Mr. Schedule. Good to
All right.
see a parliamentarian.
Yes, thank you. Take care. Have a good night.
Yep. Okay. We are moving on to PL 2021-011 SP, an amendment to 645 Union Avenue. And this is going to be an employee parking lot. And I'm dying to hear all about it. Is the applicant here? Well,
It's
there.
pretty boring, so. I know you're excited about hearing about it, Peter, but it's gonna be.
We are
pretty-
excited. Well, I like paving. I really do. Pavement is cool.
Before we start, this is the fifth meeting of the year. This is the fourth meeting that I've attended this year. And I just want to say I appreciate what all you people do. It's really a thankless job. I've been listening to a lot of different proposals that come through the city. And you're here to help make the city a nicer place. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that's not an attempt to butter this up, because this is straightforward as all get out, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. With that being said, remember the nice comment I just said tonight. So I've been here before on the back half of this lot. I thought it was going to keep the house on the front on 645 Union Ave. In fact, I'm going to tear that house down. The building's not suitable for what we wanted to do, and I'm pursuing something else in the form of building a different building. But you'll hear more about that later on this year.
Right?
I'm sorry?
On that same site where the building is now?
No, the site this will be the last time I come to you on this site, except going to the zoning board. So what we're proposing to do is we're going to tear this house down, and then we're going to continue the lot towards Union Avenue. We're going to continue the fencing, continue the green space. We're adding 3 more light poles, continue the paving. We're going to have 42 parking spaces. On the Union Avenue side, we're going to have a couple of street trees, some landscape architecture, grass, irrigation, and it'll connect onto the backside that's already been approved, Mechanic Street side. And we're going to access it only from the Mechanic Street side. There'll be an entrance on the Union Avenue side, but our intent is not to use it except for emergency. It's really tight getting in and out of that, and the buildings on, well, I'm going to take care of one of the buildings, but one building looking southerly on Union Avenue, as you're pulling out, it's really kind of tricky getting out of there. So we're going to put a couple of posts with just a plastic chain, yellow plastic chain on carabiners. So if emergency people want to come through, they could actually drive through it, but unhook it. But it will discourage people from just driving through, and all of our people will just come through Mechanic Street side and park. And it's going to 42 spaces. Specifically, it's a parking lot, not a display lot like down the street. And it's going to be primarily for our employees. And I'd say primarily because there's a possibility we'd have customers over there, but I don't anticipate that. But it's yeah, so that's what it is. If you remember, not last meeting, but the meeting before, we talked about the backside of this. So it expands on that exact project.
The building that you're going to demolish, is that the brick apartment building?
No, it's a yellow building. It used to be Pocket Sporting Goods, if you go way back.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's a yellow vinyl clad building. Most recently it was Open Door Daycare.
That's
And
what I
who bought
thought,
it
yeah.
from. They moved next door to Jim Hughes Automotive, and they turned Jim Hughes Automotive into Open Door Daycare now.
Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any questions for Mr. Canton? All right.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
No, Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, is that building, is that something you had to go before the historical?
I did.
Okay.
The Heritage Commission.
Heritage Commission. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm not a big fan of those folks.
Okay, so you went before them and.
Yeah, I knocked down a bunch of buildings and I don't particularly like
No,
that.
no, but on this one.
Yes.
So that's all.
Yes.
they-
Yeah, and yeah, they were all in favor of this one. It was the Baker House I kind of got in trouble with them, but
Yeah.
that's all. I get it. It was yeah, I don't want to go back there.
I was just curious because I hadn't heard any about anything. So.
Yeah, no, oh, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I went in front of the Heritage Commission.
Well, I have to say that I've spent my whole life watching Canton Chevrolet get bigger and bigger.
Miracle Mile.
And the nearby residents have one by one fallen into the combine here. So, well, it looks good. And thanks for including street trees. I guess you don't care if it gets on the employees' cars, right?
No, yeah, we had a discussion about that before.
Yeah, I know.
And without teasing about it, there is a big difference between a parking lot, which this is, and
Yes.
street trees are totally appropriate for this use. It makes the lot look nicer. It doesn't impact anything negatively.
Yeah.
So there'll be trees on both Union Avenue side and on Mechanic Street side, connected by grass and fully irrigated. So it will continue to look nice.
Yes, thank you. I was just teasing.
Yeah, no, I know. My employees leave every night, so that's the difference.
And
Right.
Peter, they're leaving the sidewalk intact.
Yeah, that's true. The sidewalk will still be there on both
There's
ends. Brand
sidewalks up.
new one on Mechanic Street side.
Right.
Help of the
Yeah, I
city.
was gonna say, it's an improvement there. All right, are there any other questions for the applicant? Well, sensing none, I'm gonna call the public hearing open at 8:51 PM. Are there any members of the public that would wish to be heard regarding this application? Any abutters?
Mr. Chair, nobody has indicated they wish to speak for or against this application, either online or in person.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. I'll then close the public hearing at 8:52 PM. And staff? We have your.
Staff is recommending approval with a few conditions. If you look at number 2 under item 1, because of the length of the parking lot, we have a provision in our zoning ordinance that once you exceed 175 feet, you've got to have a parking island. They are going to be going to the zoning board later this month for a variance to not do that. So if they are granted the variance, what you see as the plan is what we'll get. If they do not get the variance, then one of the parking spaces essentially gets turned into a landscaped island. It's a little bit more than one parking space, but they'll adjust the green spaces elsewhere, the couple of feet that they'll need to do that. So the approval would be conditioned, of course, on them either getting the variance or putting in the parking island, which will then, if they have to put in the parking island, that will show up when they do the as-built plan, when everything is done. Other than that, there are some issues with the water, some shutoffs. Obviously, when you're eliminating a building, you've got some, services that need to be taken care of. So that's on the condition as well.
I have a question about the irrigation meter. Does that mean that you can meter the water that you use for irrigation so you don't get a sewer charge?
Correct.
You can do that? I
Yeah.
didn't think you could do that. I paid them over $1,000 last year to water my yard and plants.
Yeah,
I
because
was-
you didn't use any other water, right?
Last year was a therapy year for me, and I think landscaping's a great thing to do.
That and
Well, I called when I got the first bill. It was 600, and I said, what happened here? You used a lot of water, buddy. Oh, okay.
that and better winterization for the system.
Oh, right. Yes.
Turn things off.
Yep, I understand. Okay.
Dean, or I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can I ask Dean a question?
Yes, I was just about to ask for questions. You anticipated my movements here.
Thank you. Dean, can you, again, just, because I got lost on the island in the parking lot. Can you
So
just clarify that
as you
again?
look at the plan, there are 25 spaces in a row
Okay.
on one side. And it exceeds 175 linear feet. So therefore, under the zoning ordinance, somewhere along there needs to be a landscaped island. If you go to the bigger parking lots in the city, they all got the landscaped islands.
Yeah.
And it's in the ordinance, it's got to be done, or we get a variance. And so, they're going to go get the variance, but.
Good. Because I can't.
Any other questions for Dean? With the applicant?
Not for Dean, but I have a question for the applicant. Is there currently a family living in that house?
Well, there are two tenants upstairs, yes.
Right now, I thought it was empty.
Yeah, there are two apartments. Two people live in the back apartment and one person lives in the front apartment. And that their lease ends on, when I bought the property, I assumed, well, I didn't really assume the lease, but their lease goes through June 1st.
Are they aware that you're not going to renew it?
They certainly are.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Any other questions for anybody? All right, well, then we've exhausted our questioning. It's time for a motion. Does anyone care to help us out here?
Make a motion to approve with staff recommendations, PL 2021-0117 SP, Amendment 1 for 645 Union Ave.
Motion made by the chief, seconded by, was that Charlie?
Yes.
Seconded by Representative St. Clair. Any further discussion? All right, sensing none, could we have a call of the roll, please?
Bruce Janey,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Mike Delvecchio,
Approved.
Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Edwin Bonas,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. The motion carries. The approval is good. Good luck. Have a good season. Sell lots of cars and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And honestly, I really do appreciate what you all do for the city of Laconia. It's, I haven't heard anybody say thanks, so let me say it as a business owner in town. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You make the city of Laconia better. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So it looks like under new business, we have to reappoint Stacy as the planning board liaison to the Conservation Commission. It says her term expires end of June 2021. Does that mean she has to go back before the council too?
It
No.
actually, that I just had to refill an application for planning board, but not for the liaison.
Right, because we appoint the liaisons and the city council appoints the board members. So you're gonna reapply. And the issue before us tonight is whether you will continue as the liaison to the Conservation Commission. And I really do hope you will. You've done a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.
Are you willing to continue?
Oh, I already sent in the application.
Okay. Are there any questions that anyone might have? Would someone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Stacy as our liaison to the Conservation Commission pending the approval for the planning board from the city council.
And street trees.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Sensing none, may we have a call of the roll, please?
Bruce Cheney,
Yes.
Carly Sinclair,
Yes.
Mike Delavecchia, Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Bear Bellevue,
Yes.
Edwin Bonas,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. It's unanimous. Thank you, Stacy, for your service on behalf of the board and the citizens of Laconia. I don't see any old business. Planning Department.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to remind Rob that there's no trees in front of Domino's yet. Are they aware?
What was that?
There's no street trees in front of Domino's. I thought they were required to put a couple in this spring.
I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, what do we do about enforcement? We spent a lot of time with the applicants in these meetings to come up with specific details and conditions, and we don't really have an enforcement plan, do we? I mean, we just respond to complaints.
Well, in this case, we have a site security that we're still holding.
Okay. Okay. Could it be possible to automatically, like, to put it as a condition of approval that that they can be inspected by the city on an annual basis to see if they're still in compliance? Or maybe just put some requirement on them to prove that they are, send us an affidavit.
Yeah, for landscaping, we get part of the site security is for landscaping, and we keep the portion of landscaping for 2 growing seasons after they've been installed to make sure that the plants survive. Most, whether they're bushes or trees, or if they make it through 2 growing seasons, they're probably going to continue to make it.
And that gives the applicant the incentive to keep them alive because they'll
Keep
get
them
their money
alive.
back.
I mean, in
Right.
case of across the street where the trees have died at the strip mall there.
Yeah.
I mean, those street trees are still part of their site plan approval, so we will be contacting them to make sure they get replaced, but we don't have a lot of leverage.
Yeah. Well, trees are wonderful, but they're also problematic. Look what trees have done to the riverfront walk by City Hall, Has that been repaired?
No, not yet.
That was pretty high on the priorities of the capital.
I think you got to wait for the next fiscal year.
Too bad it's not a major thoroughfare, or they would salt the hell out of it and the trees would have died by now.
Speaking of code enforcement, I know the courts backed off dealing with some of the code issues we had, like Roller Coaster Road and Pickerel Pond. Has there been any movement?
There has been on a couple of cases. It's slow.
Yep.
I read something the other day that the court system was starting to reopen, and we're doing more and different kinds of cases live in the courtroom. We have I forget the exact date, but it's coming up later this month. We have a date for, I forget the exact term they use, but basically it's a conference to see where we are in the case. And then at that point in time, the anticipation is that we're going to do another either site walk, and I'm talking Roller Coaster Road in particular here. We're going to do another site walk, and or the other possibility is to do a drone video, but we're going to do something, and then we would have a court date. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's like a trial management conference or a
whatever it's called.
pre-trial
But yes.
conference. The judge
We
wants
have a
to know
couple
what
of
the issue-
we have a couple of cases that are in the early goings, and they have been delayed because of
COVID.
Just like everything else has been delayed. But
Yep.
yeah, they are not forgotten.
Okay.
Could you use more staff? Would having another person help following up and working with these developers, maybe upping our inspections and stuff? Because especially when there's a boom going, like right now, there's only how many people in this planning department? 4, 5?
Including myself, 8.
Oh, 8. Okay. Are you including code enforcement in that number?
Yes, planning and code would be 8.
Well,
we
it's something to
do a lot of multitasking. We have our zoning technician out sometimes looking at property maintenance things, and we have our property maintenance person out looking at zoning issues, and then they coordinate their activities. To answer your question, no, I don't believe we need additional staff. And we have a number of enforcement activities that are underway.
The only reason I ask is that certainly this application by Tower Hill has called into question the effectiveness of applying conditions to the approvals, because there's no mechanism for us to check it. I mean, it shouldn't come to the point where abutters have to waive the approval in front of us to get our attention and say, look, it says right here. Because he was not in compliance pretty much substantially for those 7 years, right? And he operated the business and he didn't have until he came to the planning department and said, hey, I want to amend. We didn't even know that he was out of compliance, did we?
He was.
I mean, I don't mean to single him out. I'm just saying
No,
that
I understand what you're saying.
there's a lesson there somewhere.
Yeah,
The city has some responsibility to make sure that people comply with conditional use permits that they're,
So he was in partial compliance from the standpoint of he did not extend beyond his allotted hours.
Right.
He did not install the insulation, obviously, until recently, and those kinds of things. But the installation of the insulation was, as I read the minutes of the various meetings back then, was a prelude to possibly gaining extended hours if he actually did those things.
Right.
So, but he conformed to the hours for the most part during that time frame. I think it was, and I may be wrong, but I think it was Brett who mentioned this past summer, obviously, it was a combination of things, and one of it was the outdoor stuff that was meant to help businesses during COVID, but obviously just exasperates the problem up there.
Okay. Well, any questions for Dean? Anything else you want to cover in the staff report today?
No, I think for sake of the time, we're good for this
Okay.
month.
All right, we're good for this month. LRPC, Rob, we had a meeting. We've had two actually fairly recently. What was the last one about? I keep forgetting.
Last one was about
Oh.
LCHIP.
Oh, yes, the most recent one was about LCHIP. That's right.
And the one previous to that was about flooding.
Yep, that's right. Flood insurance program. Kind of a primer on that. There have been several events like that, which the public is welcome to observe. And I would encourage planning board members to get to know what the Lakes Region Planning Commission does. It's my hope as chair that we're going to soon reconvene the Master Plan Steering Committee. We are possibly going to need the services of somebody like the Lakes Region Planning Commission to do some examination and writing for us, some sort of investigation, maybe task them with coming up with a new set of goals and objectives. Because as you've heard me say before, I think we really need to put down in writing and follow a process of encouraging the tourism issue here in town. With the lakes that we have, we'd be foolish not to. The building boom that's going on right now, it should probably last a year or two. And another thing we need to look at is the housing problem. I think, an open question, what role does the city play in ensuring that there's workforce housing? The big hole next to my house, there were 32 people that lived in that half block. Where did they go at a time when rents are sky high? So anyway, that's the Planning Commission, and I would urge you guys to check it out. Stacy, anything to report from conservation?
I'm just curious about we lost our conservation tech. She went to another job and I haven't seen any more ads for it. And I was just wondering if how that position was going.
Yeah, Ashley has moved on to greener pastures. We have been advertising. We are using some online services as well this time around. We do have several applications already. The closing period is Friday, I believe, and we'll be evaluating applicants at that time.
The New Hampshire Municipal Association has a job listing. Are we using that?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, that's the go-to place.
Yeah, and we have the New Hampshire planners as well.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Stacy. City Council?
Nothing.
Well, thank you for that succinct report. And the Historic District Commission.
You were brought up to date tonight's meeting on that.
I think we covered that ground pretty good tonight. Any other business? Last call. All right. If there are no objections, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all